1985. 1. Michael Wilson whispers in her ear, "Don't worry, Afaf. I can do it in a way so you'll still be a virgin. I know how it is with your family." Afaf is in his bedroom, his parents gone for the evening. Michael strips to his underwear, then sits behind her on his bed. He pulls off her shirt, unclasps her bra. Afaf lets the white boys touch her only over her clothes. She lets Michael Wilson go farther while she stares at a picture of him and his girlfriend, Kelly McPherson. They're at the Six Flags amusement park, holding stuffed animals he's won for her, tacked up on a bulletin board. As Michael kisses her shoulders, lifts her thick strands of hair, Afaf wonders if Kelly's body feels the same to him. Perhaps the only difference is their hair. Kelly's blonde tresses fall in shimmering waves down her back, not a single curl interrupting its flow, while Afaf's hair has turned frizzy from constant relaxers, her ends splitting into tiny brittle pitchforks. Michael Wilson is a senior point guard on Hoover High School's basketball team. Comes into the Dairy Queen where Afaf works after school and on weekends. His friends give loud and whooping orders for burgers and shakes. She didn't think Michael noticed her until last week. He came up to the counter a second time and asked if she'd like to hang out with him sometime. "We can watch a movie or something at my house." Afaf knows he doesn't really mean that when he asks her out. None of the white boys do. They don't take her to public places, and they don't want to watch movies at their houses on dusty VHS recorders in their family room. She knows that what they say about her at Hoover High School. Afaf will let you make out with her. She might even give you a blowjob. And she knows Kelly McPherson is Michael's girlfriend, but Afaf doesn't care. She grabbed the napkin on which Michael had written his address and slipped to her across the ice cream display case. She nodded at him and tucked it in the pocket of her uniform apron. Afaf studies Michael's room as he sucks on her neck, sure to leave a few hickeys. She's learned to hide them behind waves of hair, though her parents don't regard her very closely. She'd once caught Majid staring at one beneath her ear when she'd carelessly pulled her hair into a ponytail. They were watching television and he only looked at her like he does at Mama, a combination of pity and worry and powerlessness. She tries not to think about what he's heard in the boys' locker room around school. Has he seen her name scrawled in marker on a washroom stall? Call Afaf for a fuck. On one wall of Michael Wilson's room are mounted shelves with state championship trophies and all-star plaques. Afaf imagines how proud Michael's parents must be of their son. Had they known as soon as he was born that he would be a star athlete? Did they ever imagine he'd be messing around with an Arabian girl? What would they think of him now, almost naked, making out with a girl in his room? Would it matter less if it were Kelly McPherson? Majid has just as many baseball trophies. They're piled on a dresser in his bedroom, some on the floor near his bed. Baba and Mama make only the championship games, clapping proudly when Majid takes the plate, rotating his arms, digging his left toe in the turf. Mama clasps Baba's arm, sucking in her breath until Majid's bat makes swift contact with the ball. At Hoover, he makes appointments with his guidance counselor, researches colleges and scholarships. He's going to have a career, an aspiration that seems so alien to Afaf, so optimistic. She isn't good at anything. She's always made decent grades with the least amount of effort, but nothing interests her beyond reading. Luckily, her elementary school teachers hadn't killed that joy in her. In 2 days, she can now devour a Sidney Sheldon novel. She's read all of them, And if she likes an unassigned book at school, she'll look up the author at the public library and check out others written by them. She remembers when Nada took her to the library so she could get her own library card. How proud she'd been to neatly print her name where the woman pointed. How thrilled she was to finally check out books on her own. Michael Wilson doesn't have any books in his room, only a calculus textbook tossed on the floor and a wrestling magazine folded over on his nightstand. He fumbles with her bra. Could Majid be so bold with a girl? Has he even has he even kissed one? Something suddenly turns in Afaf's stomach and she jerks away from Michael, snatching up her clothes and flying down the staircase. Hey! Where the hell are you going, Afaf? Michael Wilson shouts down at her. She hates the way her name sounds from his lips, like the others. She's heard reducing her to an object. Afaf, a slut, a virgin, a lost girl. That's what Mama calls her on the phone with Khalti Nasreen. Binti Daya, lost girl. They don't know how far she goes with the white boys, that an invisible force pulls her back from crossing that dangerous ravine of sex. She pretends it's because she doesn't want to, but the truth, tucked deep in her stomach, in the place where she's always felt shame and guilt dwelling in her body, is that she's afraid to betray Mama and Baba in such a way. Her virginity is her last vestige of childhood, of innocence. She offers it up to her parents like a precious stone. You're different, Michael had told Afaf when he'd first locked the door to his room. But she realizes it's not in a good way, because different is never good. Maybe that's what her sister Nada was talking about in her diary all those years ago. Could it be why she left? It's what the young detective finally told her parents. Nada's case was classified as a runaway. There's no evidence of foul play here. I'm sorry, Mr. and Mrs. Rayman. It was 1980, 4 years since the first time Afaf had seen the detective. His blue eyes had dulled since that evening in their old apartment on Fairfield Avenue. Mustahil, Mama shouted, wiping away tears with the sleeve of her house dress. Impossible. She never ran away from me. Baba had gently grabbed Mama's shoulders, whispered something in her ear. She vehemently shook her head, but stayed quiet. The detective looked down at his notepad. Afaf and Majid sat at the kitchen table, their mahshi growing cold on their plates. She liked to split open the stuffed zucchini, eat the rice first, then the skin. They'd been halfway through the meal when the detective arrived. Ever since that night, Mama has been floating through the years like a ghost, moving around their family, hovering on the periphery of their lives. Baba disappears into himself, coming home late, stinking of alcohol. Afaf runs out the back door, hops onto her 10-speed bike she'd left in Michael Wilson's fenced backyard. You bitch! Rings in her ears as she rides home through the alley. Two. In her bedroom, Afaf drowns out their shouting with her Walkman. It's the same fight between her parents. Mama wants to go back to the Bilad for good. Angry words still break up the lyrics floating through Afaf's headphones. Can't afford it, Muntaha. And do you feel scared? I do. You drink it away. But I won't stop and falter. Think of your children. And if we threw it all away? I have no life here, Mahmoud. Things can only get better. Afaf squeezes her eyes shut, turns up the volume. There's a part of her that wants Mama to leave, the part of her that folds itself over and over again, tucking away the hurt every time her mother looks through her, never seeing Afaf, always seeing her firstborn. She comes home every day to Mama at the stove, cooking meals she won't eat herself. She looks like a withering tree, her thin arms like leafless branches, hands that appear incapable of holding more than a broom that she sweeps across the dull wooden floor of their apartment. There is another part of Afaf that wants to shake the grief out of her mother along with all of the memories of Nada and the Bilad until they're like specks of dust. But her family has moved 3 times since Nada disappeared, and her absence still occupies the most space in each small flat, squeezing out Afaf and Majid. In the school cafeteria the next day, something cool slithers across her scalp and slides down to her face. Afaf catches globs of green jello in her hand. "Slut!" Kelly McPherson whispers in her ear. She stands behind Afaf in the lunch line. Her friend Angela Malone cuts in front of her. They're all freckles and feral white teeth. Angela's shaken out a foam cafeteria bowl, freeing a few more green globs onto Afaf's sneakers. Kelly's breath is hot on her neck. "Stay the fuck away from my boyfriend." Though fear prickles her skin, Afaf slams her tray on the counter and pushes Kelly so hard she knocks down 2 other students behind her. A semicircle forms around them, raising and hooting. Afaf can't hear what Kelly's shouting at her from the floor. A crushed pint of milk pools near Kelly's butt. Angela grabs a fistful of Afaf's hair and yanks her backward. She whirls around and catches Angela's chin with her fist. Then someone pins Afaf's arms to her sides and carries her out of the cafeteria. A peanut butter and jelly sandwich hits her face to a chorus of laughter. In his office, Coach Phillips, one of the deans, hands Afaf paper towels to wipe off the jello from her hair. The sheets stick to the sugary residue. She sinks into the chair opposite of him at his desk. His shelf is full of trophies and ribbons. Framed photographs of Hoover High School's wrestling team are on the walls, perfectly aligned from 1972 to 1984. In every one of them, Coach Phillips strikes an identical pose, arms behind his back, shoulders rounded, stomach tucked in. In the very first photograph, his hair is thick and long and sweeps across his forehead. As the years progress, his hair grows thinner and shorter, and in the most recent one, last year, it's all gone, shaved to the scalp. And he's fatter now, but nothing changes about his stance, an unsmiling, dead stare at the camera. He thumbs through a file and dials a number on his office phone. "Mrs. Raymond? This is Dean Phillips from Hoover High School." He pauses, tapping his pencil on the edge of the desk. "Do you speak English?" He nods at Afaf. Good. I have your daughter Afaf in my office. She struck another student, ma'am. Hit a girl." "Yes." He neglects to tell Mama that it was Angela Malone who grabbed her hair first. She did feel a certain satisfaction in the way her knuckles crunched into Angela's cheekbone. But getting blamed for the entire incident? The bell rings and the hallway outside the dean's office fills with the pandemonium of another passing period. Lockers slam shut and footsteps thunder to the next class. Afaf tries not to squirm in her chair. Coach Phillips says into the phone, "You'll need to pick her up. 3-day suspension, ma'am." A pause. "Yes, she'll be waiting for you." Thank you, ma'am. He hangs up and jots something down in her file, closes it. He leans back in his swivel chair, hands folded across his potbelly. Are you planning on not graduating, Miss Raymond? Afaf folds the soiled sheet of paper towel over and over, ignoring his question, pretending to be cool. But it's the second time this semester she's been in his office. Last month, she cursed at a boy in her physics class. Mr. Biggs had posed a problem about velocity and a classmate had snickered something about the speed of a camel. But cursing out a classmate is one thing, laying your hands on them is another. Perspiration trickles down Afaf's back. The adrenaline from punching Angela has faded and the dean's lack of compassion leaves her feeling hollow and lone. 3 strikes and you're out, young lady. Afaf stares icily at Coach Phillips. No matter what, she'll never show them she's scared. Never reveal how truly weak she is. Every year the social worker calls her down to her office and Afaf listens to the same lecture. You have choices, Afaf. We can only control what we can in our lives. The social worker had wanted to know, are your parents strict, Afaf? Are you having trouble at home? Afaf had suppressed a laugh. Strict? White people think she's locked up the minute she gets home, that she's oppressed and not free. Mama and Baba barely acknowledge her, let alone care what she does outside of school. Maybe if they did, she wouldn't be sitting in the dean's office again. You need your diploma, young lady. Wouldn't want your father selling you to a harem, would you? Coach Phillips chuckles, scratches the bridge of his nose with a meaty finger. She fights hard to control the flush of red across her cheeks. She wants to grab one of his trophies and smash it on his face. It's a joke she's heard him make before to the prettier Arab girls at Hoover. They smile back politely. He has an assortment of insults reserved for the Arabi boys too. No oil deals during the school day, fellas. His tone is always playful, not fully masking his distaste for the non-white element at Hoover High School. He's among a dangerous kind of adult, a smile suppressing their true feelings about you, like Mrs. Cass, her English teacher. She ignores the only 2 black students in Afaf's class unless they ask questions. Then she gives them a phony smile. Or Mr. Abbott, the study hall supervisor. He lets the white kids slide on tardies, but diligently writes up everyone else. Coach Phillips hands Afaf a pass. Wait for your mother outside, and you better keep out of my office. He swivels to a filing cabinet on his left. Afaf leaves his office without having uttered a single word.